And welcome inside episode 120 of Breaking Bats, presented by Not For Long Media. My name is Justin Ayers, and I'm joined by Ricky Finkel to do a little MLB news or a little around the MLB with some of the biggest stuff we've seen this past week in Major League Baseball. So, Ricky, it's great to see you. How are we doing up there in New York?
I'm doing great. The Mets fan in me isn't doing as well, but the baseball fan in me is very fired up with how the season started so far for the league.
Yeah, I mean, Memorial Day, it's a pretty good marker, a pretty good indicator of like, is this team good or bad? I feel like once you get to Memorial Day and past that, you're kind of like, all right, now we can start to kind of suss this out a little bit, really separate the good and the bad. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. We're going to start with the San Diego Padres. The Padres have clawed their way back to 500. And I'm sure they are counting that. I'm sure them and their fans are counting that as a W because their season has been very inconsistent. They took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. They got swept by the Rockies. They took 3 out of 4 in Atlanta. But I mean, if you think about it, this team last year was basically a 500 team, 82 and 80. So we're trending in that direction this year. I hate to say it, but so the Manny Machado situation has been something that I've been keeping an eye on. He had elbow surgery a while ago. He's going through a really, really bad stretch in his career. The same with Xander Bogaerts. Xander's batting .219 and he hurt his shoulder. But if you go back and you look at the track record and you know these guys aren't going to be hopefully this bad for the rest of the year, is it enough to tell Padres fans just, you know what, be patient. Let's just wait for the stars to start being stars again?
Yeah, I mean, I think telling any fan base to be patient is a dangerous word to say. I feel like I know that all too well. But everyone in the NL West, really, they're playing for second place. Let's be real. The Dodgers are just that much better than everybody. So in that case, they're in second place. They're doing pretty well. For me, it's been kind of a weird year. I feel like there have been 2 big pieces on the trade block that no one thought the Padres would get, and then all of a sudden you get the Jeff Passanbaum that they got Arias and Cease, and those all both came out of nowhere. But I think they're staying afloat, doing pretty well, and then you got to think those guys are going to return to form at some point. Manny, especially. I know Xander had a tough year last year, so hopefully this isn't the start of something for him. But Manny's definitely going to bounce back. He's just too talented not to.
Yeah, I read it was like the worst 43 game stretch of his career at any point is what Manny Machado just went through. So I think once you get that out of the way, he's already kind of picked it up a little bit in the Braves series. The defense has been there the entire time, though. So that's something that Padres fans, I know the offense, you want it to be better, but you're still getting gold glove, even platinum glove caliber defense at the hot corner from him. But also I was thinking about this too, like the Padres got rid of so much payroll and they're basically in the same spot they were last year, but then they just go out and, like you said, they traded for Arias, they traded for Cease. Like it's not too bad. They're right in second place in the NL West. Like you said, if they continue there, they're already in the 3rd wild card spot as bad as they have been. Like, I don't know. I feel like we might have to give AJ Preller a little credit. I know that might be, taboo to say if you're a Padres fan, like, because you're not supposed to like AJ Preller, but guy's not doing a bad job given what he's already had to do to cut the money down and trade for people.
Yeah, I mean, and the Padres also, they have such a good rotation, such a top-heavy, strong rotation that I don't know that anyone would want to see them in a 3-game series, in a 5-game series, even in the first couple rounds. I mean, imagine having to go against, it would be what, Cease, Musgrove, and Darvish in a 3-game set in the first round. That's pretty good. And they got the who's the lefty they signed from? I think it was Japan or Korea, the reliever. I meant to check in on how he's doing. Because I know that he was a closer. Oh, I forget his name at the moment.
Yuki Matsui. He's actually ERA in the high 3s, but he's not doing too bad for a first year in America.
Yeah, I remember I saw some reports that were saying he was doing pretty well. Obviously it takes a little bit of time to adjust, but that's definitely still a solid bullpen. I'm not Josh Hader, but we'll take a 3-3.
Yeah, Cease has definitely been the rock. Yu Darvish. How about Yu Darvish at 37 years old, dropping a 2.08 ERA in there for him? So he's been pitching like the top of the rotation Darvish that he hasn't necessarily been in the last couple of years. But for a team that traded away Juan Soto, you're getting production from weird spots, though. It is funny that Profar they got for like $1 million and they signed him late. I think he might even have a minor league deal. You get him. Your center fielder is Jackson Merrill, who's never played center field before. You're getting production, from guys that you didn't necessarily think would be doing it. And so if you can just have them do what they're doing and then wait for Manny and Xander and all these like actual stars to start hitting, why not? Why not the San Diego Padres?
Why not? I mean, talent plays, superstars play in the postseason, just get there. I mean, speaking of the Soto trade, King's been a solid solid guy for them this year too. I mean, what does he have, like a 4.3, I think? I mean, that's nothing to write home about, but you'll take it and you're slotting in for your 4 or 5. But yeah, if I was a Padres fan, I'd be cautiously optimistic because who knows which way it can go. There's a lot of reasons to think it could go well, but you never know.
For them to be in the third wild card spot, as tough as of a season it has been for them, I think is great. But there's also another part of me that might be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. That's like, is the NL just kind of down this year? If the 500 San Diego Padres are a playoff team as of this point, like when you take stock of all the other teams in the National League, like do you think overall this is just kind of a down year for the NL?
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like it's a down year for the NL. I mean, that kind of 500 spot, that feels like what the third wild card should be. That's normally, if you think of the past couple of years, that's like kind of the team that's just barely missing on the playoffs or just kind of a tier below the other second wild card team. So I don't know that would like scream NLs down to me. But I think also just kind of putting it in perspective, the AL has been incredible. I mean, the AL East is still one of the best divisions in baseball. The AL Central is 2 30-win teams. I mean, definitely wouldn't have had that on my mind for Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the wild card picture right now. Braves, Cubs, and Padres are 1 through 3 in the wild card. There's a lot of teams outside of the wild card contention that I for sure thought would be better. I'm not ready to call the Cincinnati Reds dead yet. I know they're 19 and 28. They're still only 4.5 out of a wild card spot, but there's teams like that are like kind of down there a little bit, like the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Reds. Like I thought they would be better than they are, and they're not playing great ball as of yet, but I'm not ready to call those teams dead. I think they might pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now too. If you look all the way down to the Cardinals, there's about 4 or 5 teams that are 2.5 games out, right? And
Yeah,
still plenty of ball left to be played. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Giants are. I don't think that they're that good, to be in contention for the wild card, especially with the Jung Ho Lee injury. I think that's a big loss for them. But yeah, Arizona, I'd love to see a little bit more out of. I mean, I don't think Washington's going to stay up there for much longer. But who knows if the young guys keep performing.
Yeah, there's a lot of baseball to be played in 2024. But the next thing I want to get your take on was I saw that the Yankees owner Hal Steinbrenner, he came out, he said on a podcast, he's like, hey, you know what? We want Juan Soto in pinstripes for the rest of his career. And he said, you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if there was talks in season between the Yankees and Soto's agent, Scott Boras. That's all nice to say out loud. And I'm sure it's like, it probably makes the fan base feel all warm and fuzzy inside just thinking about Soto for like another 15 years. But that's just all talk, right? There's no chance ever anything's going to get done.
No, I mean, to me, that's like the biggest no shit I've ever heard in my life. I mean, obviously you want this guy. He's hitting, he's like, what, third in the league in WAR right now, 10 bombs. You guys are rolling on everything. Obviously you want to keep him in pinstripes for life. But if there's anything I think that is more guaranteed than anything in the world, it is Scott Boras taking Juan Soto to free agency. I mean, he's turned down $500 million from the Nationals in 4 or 5 years ago. Unless they float him $1 billion or something crazy, why wouldn't you take him to free agency? There's no point. I mean, he's having an incredible year. Just there'll probably only end up being 3 or 4 teams that are interested, but it's not like he's going to get less from the Yankees now than he would. Or sorry, it's not like he's going to get more from the Yankees now than he will at the end of the season. I mean, we've already seen what he's doing.
I saw some people on MLB Network talking about just like, I think there's a chance Juan Soto could take it. What if he gets injured? What if the production drops? He's already turned down 15 for 440 from DC. Like, he doesn't want to pass up that kind of opportunity again. What happens if he, gets hit by a bus? He probably wants that money, right? It's like, what are we talking about? This guy's going to get so much money in free agency. He's going to be 26 at the end of the year. Like, the money's going to start with a 5 at least, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and if I'm Hal Steinbrenner, that's what you got to say. We're going to talk to him. We're going to try. But the only way that I could see that happening is if he fires Scott Boras, which why would he do that? There are other players in the league who have him as agents that, based on what happened this offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to move in a different direction. But not Soto.
That's such a great point because what was it, the Boris 4 this past offseason, and like all of them just did not get the years and the dollar amounts that they were hoping for in free agency. Like that, I could see that being a problem for some of like not in the superstar tier as Juan Soto,
Yeah.
but maybe in those lower tiers of free agents. Like, I don't know about Scott anymore. But I think this is going to be a legacy offseason for Scott Boras. I think he's going to go out and he's going to get not just a Brinks truck. I think he's going to get multiple Brinks trucks. How about that?
I mean, Soto himself might get 4 or 5. But yeah, I'm curious to see who his free agents are in the for this upcoming season. Because right, I don't think that superstar tier of Soto players, they're not going to be affected by it. I mean, they won't have any changes, but maybe that kind of below tier, the guys with a couple all-star games, maybe, 1 or 2 good years and then a bad year. Those are the guys that, Boras that might want to look in a different direction, but I don't know.
When you think back to the Boras 4 in this past offseason, I know we spent a lot of time at a lot of other baseball shows, spent a lot of airtime just being like, this is an outrage. These guys can't get money. But like looking back, is there a part of you that's kind of like, I could kind of see why Cody Bellinger didn't get $500 million, or, Blake Snell, who walks everybody who comes to the plate. Why didn't he get half a bill? I'm also kind of like, I don't know, because it's like you're staring at a red flag in your face and you're like, you know what? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes along to a general shift of what MLB free agency has been over the past 10 or 15 years, where teams aren't as willing to throw out the mega deals to, a 32-year-old Albert Pujols anymore, just because they've seen how badly that's played in the end of their careers. So, with that kind of teams being able to say like, hey, we're not going to pay, Snell $40 million for 7 years. We're not going to give him $200 million because we don't need to, and it's not like our fan base understands that's a bad deal. No one's clamoring for it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of his new free agents aren't putting up those numbers really ever again.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just looked up who he's got.
Okay.
He's got Pete Alonso, who we can get into later.
Got some Pete later. Yep.
Scherzer, Bregman, and Corbin Burns. I think those are the big ones for this offseason. And honestly, I don't know that I mean, Scherzer's a different story because he's 38, but Bregman and Corbin Burns, I'd probably put them like just below the Soto tier, but probably above the Matt Chapman, Blake Snell tier. So I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah, Burns is probably going to want what Cole got if I had to put a comp just off the top of the dome. Like, I think if we're talking comps, like Burns, Cole, that's an easy one. Bregman, maybe the age. I feel like Bregman's still a solid third baseman. He's probably going to get the money, but yeah, like I don't know. Now I feel bad that I spent so much time and effort and energy trying to go on here and say that like, but Matt Chapman and Blake Snell and all these guys, they deserve so much more money than they're being offered from Chapman or than by Boras. I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like, Blake Snell walks everybody. Matt Chapman doesn't hit for average. Cody Bellinger had one big year. Jordan Montgomery has never really been like a top of the line starter. Like, I don't know. Kind of makes sense if you think about it.
Those were the 4. It didn't really seem like any of those were slam dunks. Like, if you sign me up as a fan for $100 million contract for any of those guys, I don't think I would have been like, this is definitely going to work no matter what happens. I mean, would I have been surprised if you said Cody Bellinger regressed? No. Would I have been surprised if you said Blake Snell kept walking guys? I mean, he's always, he's been, he won the Cy Young last year, but I don't know his stats at the top of my head, but I don't think he was throwing 8 innings to start, which is definitely something that needs to be valued now among front offices.
Snell was always good year, bad year. If you look at like his baseball reference, there's like good, bad, and you're like, well, why is this guy getting the money? It's like, I don't know, because is this an even year? Is that kind of determines if he's good or not? Yeah, I just thought that was crazy. Last thing on the Yankees, I don't know. Do we think the Yankees are legitimately good, or do we think that they've played an easy schedule? Because I did a little digging, and they've only had to play the 25th hardest schedule in baseball so far. They're 12-8 against teams that are better than 500. The one team that you look at on their schedule is the Orioles, that are like, okay, this is like legit powerhouse. The Yankees lost 3 out of 4. So my question to you as a New Yorker, are the Yankees actually good?
Yeah, I think they are. It pains me to say it, but I think they are. I think that strength of schedule is pretty overrated for baseball, at least. I mean, let's just look at the rotation. Stroman threw a one-hitter the other day. Luis Gil had 14 strikeouts over 6 the other day too. really just going to do that. Like, that's fair. Okay. Carlos Rodon seems to be bouncing back. Nestor Cortez seems to be bouncing back. I know they got a fifth guy too, and I can't think of who it is at the moment. But I know
Clark Schmidt.
Clark Schmidt probably having
Go
no, he's
Cox.
having a pretty solid year. I mean, I looked at the Yankees, like they posted their lineup the other day, and I was looking at it. Giancarlo Stanton's hitting 250. Where did that come from?
It's not that good though.
But for him,
But for him,
he's got 10 bombs. But like, I know 250 is nothing to like, oh my god, write home about. But
Stanton standards though.
Stanton's been a guy that like they've been trying to find reasons to get him out of the lineup for years. So if he's like a net positive, he's hit 10 bombs, so clearly he's doing something right. Judge is starting to turn around a little bit too. They were doing all this at the beginning of the year without him. I think they're legit. Volpe too. It seems like he's settling in the leadoff spot. Yeah. As much as I hate to admit it, I think they're legit.
We don't have to admit it. If you hate to, we don't have to do it. You don't.
Well,
nothing that says you have to. Well, the thing with, have you seen this thing with like Stanton and all those guys are like they're the kings of bat speed? It's like the Yankees have 3 of the top guys in terms of like bat speed. It's like that should count as like the 28th ring just for like having that many guys who could swing the bat really fast.
Stan, I think I saw his average bat speed was like 3 miles an hour faster than anyone else in baseball. I was like, yeah, I probably could hold you out. But
and 250 too, like wow.
Yeah, he's in 250. I mean 250, but
250.
Yeah. I guess slimming down really worked out for him.
Yeah, he's so much quicker now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, that made me sad. But we'll go to the other New York team. We'll keep it up there in the New York tri-state area. Mets. I know you're a Mets fan. They've been going through it. Let's talk about it because let's go back to last year. The Mets almost traded Pete Alonso last year, and it like kind of surprised everybody. I think the Brewers were in there. I don't know. I think there's another team too, but they're definitely shopping him because apparently, and it's coming out now, is that they offered him 7 years, 158 back then. They were like, no thanks. And so like, all right, what can we get in the trade market for Pete? Obviously it didn't happen, but I saw that Matt Olson, Freddie Freeman, they both got almost exactly the same. It was like different years and like the money was spread out, but it would have been almost the same AAV. Well, Alonso said he wants much bigger contracts than those guys. My question to you, the Mets fan, is do you think Pete's overplaying his hand a little bit? And do you think he's setting his asking price a little too high?
Probably. We just talked about who his agent is. I mean, would we be surprised? In reality, he's what, a 30-year-old right-handed hitting first baseman who's just pretty one-dimensional hitting for power. His average has been down the past couple of years. So, I don't know if he's going to get $200 million over 7 or 8 or whatever he wants. I will say, though, as a Mets fan, if we trade Pete Alonso, that's probably the one thing that could happen that would make me genuinely have to rethink whether or not I want to continue being a Mets fan. Because this guy, he's a homegrown star, loves playing in New York, he's embraced the fans like no one I've ever seen him in my life. He's been the Met of my generation, really. I mean, I remember when he came up, it was a big uproar. We let him go. We didn't, do any of that service time BS with him. There's no one who's kind of embraced the city as a Met and who genuinely seems like he wants to be a Met like Pete. And as a fan, that means so much. That's so fun to watch. You can see it in his interviews. You can see that he wants to be here. And so for me, that's like, I know this is all like, dumb, analytical, like no dumb reasons, like with my heart. But you know what? Sometimes guys deserve that. And as a Mets fan, I want that. I want him to go to the Hall one day if he does. I'm not saying he's that good. With a Mets cap on, no debate. I want him to be the Met of my generation. I haven't bought his jersey yet because I've been worried about this. So I want to buy the jersey.
Dang, you're so right though. Because like
about Pete,
that was awesome, dude. Golf claps to that. Pete he's the Met. He's a quintessential New York Met. He embodies everything that's good about the Mets. The fans obviously love him. He's the polar bear for God's sakes. He has 50 home runs. Like he's the guy that like you want to keep as a Met. And to think that like if it comes down to dollars and cents with Uncle Stevie Cohen not being able to fork over the money for somebody who you just said is like your go-to ride or die New York Met, that would be a tough pill to swallow to see him leave for like No, actually, we want him for 20 a year, and they're going to give him 22 a year, so can't match that. Like, what? You guys are the
Exactly.
Mets. You just paid all this money for all these other people. Why
We're
can't
paying
why can't we
Verlander
hook him?
15 million to pitch for someone else. Like, just give him the money. I know there's so many reasons not to do it, but I don't care. Do it. I'm not saying you got to extend him now. It doesn't have to be anything nuts. Pay whatever market price is. But people being able to play in New York shouldn't be overrated. It shouldn't be undervalued. So, you see a guy like Sonny Gray who comes to the Yankees. He's tough for a year and a half, and then he goes to Minnesota and he's a stud there. We see guys come to the Mets all the time, and they're not good because they can't. Whether it's the limelight, whether it's the city, whether it's the attention, whatever it is, they just don't perform. And we've got a guy in Pete who's a proven New Yorker, loves it, loves the fans. The fans love him, loves the lights on him. I mean, and it's not like he's a shortstop that's going to have to get moved off shortstop at some point. He's a right-handed hitting power first baseman. I think that'll age fine. I mean, he's not going to hit 270 like he did his rookie year, when he's 35, but hopefully he can still hit 45 bombs, So I don't know. That's the one thing that's if they trade him, unless we're really, really, really out of it, and it's we'll trade him and re-sign him, one of those scenarios. Please don't lose him.
Joey Gallo, when he played for the Yankees, couldn't walk down the street or leave his apartment because of New York.
Yeah.
So
some guys just can't handle it, which is fine. But Pete's shown that he can.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we just. I'm trying to think of some other examples. I can't. Jason Bay is the obvious one, but we often sign these players to come to New York, and they don't know how to manage it. Edwin Diaz, his first year, he had a whole year it took him to acclimate to the city. That's a guy who's done it already.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from the official sponsor of Not For Long Media and the Breaking Bats podcast, the original Fudge Kitchen. It is a staple of the Jersey Shore with 6 locations in Cape May, Wildwood, North Wildwood, Stone Harbor, and Ocean City. The original Fudge Kitchen makes all of their fudge in store, guaranteeing a delicious product, so stop by and let them know that Not For Long Media and Breaking Bats sent you. Check them out online at fudgekitchens.com as they are shipping fudge and sweet treats all across the country. Now back to the episode. That's what a great segue, because I wanted to ask you about Edwin Diaz next. His job security at the moment is being described as, quote, fluid, which isn't necessarily it doesn't bode well. Mm-hmm. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. If you're like, what's his, is he the closer? Well, it's kind of fluid. 3 blown leads and 3 straight outings. The last time he gave up 4 runs and a loss to the Miami Marlins. I know we've seen peak Edwin Diaz, and then he had the injury, and a lot's happened, but how sad is it seeing this version of the guy who used to come out to those narco trumpets and it was so sick?
It's tough. I've only been able to recently admit to myself that he's struggling. I think for a while it was just he'll be fine. He'll be fine. I think the most concerning thing is the fastball velocity. I don't know about any other specific metrics like his slider, how it's moving or any of that stuff, but his fastball is down from 101 to 95. So I wonder a little bit if that's got to do with the ACL, whether he's not being able to drive off of it or land on it. I'm not sure which knee it was. They say in football that the first year back from the ACL is still kind of like you're recovering. It's the second year you come back that guys really feel confident in it. Being a Giants fan, I just watched that with Saquon Barkley. Not getting into that. Same thing with Pete. Not getting into that. But I feel like that's got to be, related to why his velo is so down. I mean, I think he's still our closer. I think he'll continue to be our closer. Do I hate getting him into lower leverage situations to kind of figure it out a little bit? No. I mean, I think it makes sense. I think there was a stretch there where the Mets also had 3 or 4 weeks without a save opportunity. So he was kind of just not really pitching a lot. I'm not break glass in case of emergency with Diaz yet, I guess, to sum it up, but I'm definitely a little bit concerned. Fastball velocity is my number one concern, though.
I saw that somebody was theorizing, well, he is 30. I think he's 30. When you start getting up there in age, I'm what are we talking about? I just watched Charlie Morton throw upper 90s. The guy's 40. Yeah. What do we age doesn't necessarily equate to like, okay, well, it's not like a running back in football where you hit 30 and you're like, that's it.
Mhm.
Time to put him out to pasture. All the tread's gone. I thought that was
Theoretically,
weird. Yeah.
yeah, he just didn't pitch for a whole year too, so he should be fresh. Um, but yeah, what his fastball's down a lot, like way too much.
And that's his bread and butter, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much a two-pitch pitcher, fastball, slider, and if you can't blow guys away with run up in the zone, then I don't know how much better the slider looks coming in at 90. It's not, you know, there used to be no one throwing it that fast. Now there's a bunch, so you got to be a little more comfortable with it. I think it's a good idea though, throwing him in some lower leverage situations. Maybe get some other guys some save opportunities. I know Ottavino has been pretty good this year. I think Lopez has been solid. But yeah, I want the trumpets back.
Yeah, that was such a cool phenomenon back then. I mean, the Orioles just did that with Craig Kimbrell. Like Craig Kimbrell, like blew like 4 saves in a row, or had 4 really crappy
Mhm.
outings. And they're like, all right, let's put the guy in the 7th for a little bit, and he
Yep.
got his mojo back, and now he's back closing games, and he's fine. So maybe that'll happen with Edwin Diaz. Who knows?
Yeah.
My last question on him is that somebody put together a compilation of all the times he's pointed straight up in the air when there's a fly ball, and it's not a fly ball, it's a home run. How much does that suck?
That's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world as a pitcher. I'm not gonna lie. Been through this before. I'll throw a name out there. Hansel Robles was a big Mets guy who used to do this a lot. Um, but I feel like with a guy like Edwin, you know, he's one of those guys that you just barrel him up and he goes just because he's the fastball's coming in so hard and strong. I know we're, you know, his velo's down. It's still 95. He throws a big heavy ball, and once you get under it, it'll go. But yeah, you got to feel like a clown when you do that. I've seen so many videos of guys doing that at Yankee Stadium or any of the smaller other ballparks, and they're just like, come on, like that should be a fly ball. But City Field's pretty decently sized. So if I was a pitcher, I would just refuse from ever doing this unless it was like a pop up and I was pointing my catcher.
Yeah, when would it ever, like, even if it wasn't like, if it was like an infield pop, like, what, these guys are like professionals. Like, it's not like little league where it's like, it's over there. Look, it's up there. It's like, I think they see it, right? I mean, I don't know if we're being like, you're really doing anything to help your cause if you're like doing a point up in the air, like, okay, yep, it's right. Nope, over there. So
Yeah, if my outfielder's not looking at the ball off the bat and they have to see Edwin Diaz pointing at it to know, then I think we got some other
yeah,
problems.
like, oh shit, thanks, Edwin. Jesus, I didn't know where that was. So, I
Yeah.
mean, the compilation is like a 4 box of just points, and I was like, ah, damn, these are all gone.
Yeah. I feel like you could do that with a lot of pitchers, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I want to see the Statcast data on finger points in the air and what the eventual ball result is, because I'm pretty sure they're all
That
just
would be the real number to know.
yeah.
What
Not
pitcher is good at it and what pitcher's got a bad feel.
yeah. What's your fly ball point ratio as
Yeah,
opposed to
what percentage are you messing up at?
yeah? I'm sure there'll be a graphic for that soon.
Yeah, I just start pointing at everything.
Just like you're abusing it.
Yeah.
I want to stick in the NL East though, because I feel
Mhm.
like we got a good pulse of the NL East here with you being a Mets fan. So Sixto Sanchez was a former Phillies prospect, was traded for JT Realmuto way back in 2019. Maybe that's why he's been in the headlines and been in, you know, people's minds for that long. He's on the Marlins. I saw a clip of Miami Marlins manager Skip Schumacher, who I'm a big fan of, talking about Sixto. Sixto gave up 4 runs in the first inning the other night. His ERA is like a 6.5. So this is Skip talking about Sixto Sanchez. He said, quote, I don't know the root of the issue, but that's unacceptable in the first inning. So if he wants to start at this level, he's going to have to start being better in the first inning. It just is what it is. We had a heart-to-heart underneath. So did the pitching coach, Mel Stoudemire Jr. And I've said this before, the changes that we're trying to do are not working. So we have to keep trying to find something. I'm not going to give up on him. We're not going to give up on him. He's not a top prospect anymore. Like, it's time to go. That's such an interesting way of a manager talking about a starting pitcher, right? Because most of the time, like Aaron Boone, whenever he's talking to the media, like he always puts the blame on him. It's not the players. It's, you know, whatever. It's very rare that you see a manager in a press conference say that's on him. He's got to figure it out. But I kind of like that tough love. I kind of like that. You know what? He's got to figure it out. We've talked to him. Maybe it'll light a fire under him. Who knows? But have you ever heard a manager talk so candidly about a poor performance like that?
Yeah, I mean, not like that. I mean, that's pretty pretty direct. I know there probably are examples of it. The one that's coming to my mind is what Ron Washington said a couple weeks ago. That's kind of I guess a little different. And I've always one thing I've always wondered about is when managers. I mean, Aaron Boone, specifically, the guy who you mentioned, does this great where he's just like, "That's on me. That's my fault." Bad. I put him in a bad situation. Obviously, that's not what they're saying to the players, right? I mean, we can all know that they're going to be a little bit harsher behind closed doors. So I've always kind of wondered, like, at what point does that strict, right? Because that was obviously those are very calculated comments from Skip Schumacher. He's a smart guy. He's not going to be just like saying things willy nilly to the press. So I'm kind of wondering what kind of prompted that. What conversations had they been having that he was like, okay, now is the time for me to call him out in the real world, and because obviously he knows that this is going to become news, that video is going to get played all around. I think the last line in there where he was like, he's not a top prospect anymore, it's time to go. First of all, great line. But second of all, I think that's a great like kind of analogy of where he's at. Like, it seems like the front office. I mean, he's been hurt for 2 or 3 years. Maybe they're it seems like they're losing a little bit of patience. He's out there now, but they're just kind of like, that's kind of their way of saying like, Sixto, you got to figure this out. Like, the leash is getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, like I think it's kind of cool because like who knows, maybe this is what Sixto Sanchez needed. Maybe it's the tough love. It's the things that's like it's a tough pill to swallow. But he had to hear it.
Yeah.
I was looking. Sixto, I think, has been a top prospect in 2016 when he was like, so he's like been in the lower levels of the minors ever since he was like 17 years old. So maybe that's why I'm like, God damn, I feel like it's been a decade we've been talking about Sixto Sanchez as like a top prospect. Because it has been a decade. Like 2015 was his first year in pro ball. And you're right, missed 21, 22 with an injury. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this is a Skip Schumacher podcast. I think he's one of the greatest, like obviously the NL manager year last year, but I thought this was kind of cool. I don't know. But you're right. I think this is all very calculated on his part. Like he probably isn't just like, you know what, fuck it. Let's just go out here and air this guy out for no reason. Like there's a reason, there's a method to the madness, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, and he said it too. Like, we had a heart-to-heart with him and the pitching coach also, where they were trying to figure it out. So they're working with him. They're working hard to it. And let's hope he can figure it out. I mean, he's been it's weird when you see like a lot of pitchers sometimes just having trouble with their first time through. So I wonder if it's just taking him a little bit to settle in. I mean, maybe not pitching in 3 years has something to do with that. But you never know. Like you said, it's Sixto. It's time to go.
Yeah. I feel like somebody was talking about this. They're like, what if we just take Sixto? What if we get him an opener? Because I feel like the first inning for Sixto. Yeah. Good God. Okay. I found his stats really quick. Sixto Sanchez splits first inning. You ready? First inning ERA, 19.8. He's given up 11 hits, 11 runs, 1 homer. Batters are batting 440 off Sixto in the first inning. But the rest of the innings, like innings 2, 3, and 4, are really good. So I don't know if you can necessarily roll out an opener or like take a relief pitcher out for the first inning every time Sixto starts, but I've never seen a 20 ERA before for an inning.
Yeah, but then you wonder, like, then the second inning becomes his first inning, and it's the same problem. Like, this would be, you could flip it a little bit and say if he was really good in the first inning and then not good after that, that's a perfect, like, oh, let's make this guy a reliever. He's coming out hot. But it's kind of tough to come in and struggle right away and then kind of set your feet and figure it out after that.
Yeah, I don't know. The Marlins, they definitely have a need for pitching because all of their horses from last year, I feel like, are injured. There's a lot of new guys this year. So they have some stuff to figure out down there in South Florida. But like I said, we're a Skip Schumacher podcast. All right, last up for this week, Zack Greinke. We just said we're a Skip Schumacher podcast, but we're also a Zack Greinke podcast because Zach's 40 years old. He's pitched in the big leagues for 20 seasons. He's one of my favorite people in baseball just for how weird and quirky he is. He has not found a team for 2024 yet. If you remember last October, he's pitching with the Royals. He, like, his final start, he gave like a little crowd wave. Everybody was giving him a standing ovation. Theoretically, that would have been a great time to be like, you know what, I retire. But Zach's not ready to hang the cleats up because he's working out at the Arizona Diamondbacks facility. Apparently, just as a courtesy, like, you don't have to be an employee of the Diamondbacks to work out there, apparently. Here's a quote from Zack Greinke about his future. He said, quote, "I don't know if this will be my last time throwing or if I'll throw the rest of this year and next year. I don't know at the moment. I'm just throwing, seeing how it works out and going from there." That's such a Zack Greinke quote. I love it. Um, what do you think's going to happen with Zach? Do you think that with this rash of arm injuries and you're like, God, these guys are throwing hard and getting hurt. They're like, you know what? What if we go old school? What if we go somebody who doesn't really throw harder than 90 anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he catches on somewhere. I also wouldn't be surprised if we talk about him like we talked about Bartolo for a couple of years, where it's just years of he's still working out, he's good, he's going, he's up for Hall of Fame vote, but someone might sign him on Tuesday. One of those situations because he feels like a guy who can just wake up and paint the lower part of the zone. I mean, he's just a pitcher through and through. I wouldn't be surprised. You could just sign him off the street and throw strikes. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone signs him. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get signed.
Right, because like it felt like the natural like progression of like, okay, you had a couple last years in Kansas City. It's where you started. It's where you won your Cy Young. It's a perfect storybook end. And he's like, you know what? Arms still feel okay. So here's another quote. Zack Greinke said, Greinke says he has not been throwing all winter. He's only picked up a baseball in the last 2 weeks. Zack Greinke said, quote, my arm feels decent at the moment. I was trying to get as good as I could at golfing the past 2 months. And I was like, why am I trying to become a pro golfer when I'm already kind of a pro baseball player? So I figured I'd throw a little bit and see how it goes. We cannot lose this character in the game of baseball. I don't want Zack Greinke to ever go out of the spotlight because quotes like this are awesome.
He'll be a great radio guy whenever he decides to hang him up. But yeah, so clearly around February, around late March, he got the itch. He was like, the wing feels good. Maybe play catch with, I don't know if he has a family or a son. Maybe
he's got a little boys.
Playing catch with his son. Popped him a couple. He's like, all right, why am I not doing this still anymore?
I like how in Zack Greinke's mind, he's like, all right, well, if I'm not going to be a baseball player, I'll become a golfer. He's like, what am I doing? I'm not a pro golfer. I'm a baseball player. He's having like a conflict in his brain. He's like, what am I? I know I've been pitching for 20 years and I'm like one of the best pitchers of all time, but like, I'm not a golfer. I'm a baseball player. And he just goes out there and starts ripping changeups out in the backyard. Like I would love to see the mental gymnastics he's been doing the last 2 months. Like, what am I? I'm having this like existential crisis of what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
I'd also love to see the video of the first time he picked up the ball again, because I could totally see him like in his backyard, literally throwing into a tree or something with just like rocks or something, some random throwing through a tire swing, anything just to make it work.
Yeah,
because he's that kind of guy.
I also had this thought too that like I looked at like the Arizona Diamondbacks, because logically, if you're already working out for them, and apparently he was like facing their extended spring training hitters, like Alec Thomas, like was down there and he's like pitching. He's doing like live ABs. Again, he hasn't thrown in he only started throwing in the last like 2 weeks. Why can't the Arizona Diamondbacks just throw him a flyer in like July? Because their starting rotation, I looked, they're 24th in team ERA. They have a 4.52 as a group. And the back half of the rotation's bad. It's like Slade, Sassoni, and Ryan Nelson both have ERAs over 6. Fuck it. Bring Zach in. Zach's not going to be that bad. I don't know what he's got left in the tank, but it's not a 7 ERA.
I mean, it feels impossible to say he wouldn't have at least like a 4 or something. At least lower than a 4. It's just Greinke. He'll strike a couple guys out, get some walks, a couple ground balls. He'll throw one 88-mile-an-hour changeup that'll make pitching ninja go what? And then after that, he'll still be out there.
If Rich Hill, who is way older than Zack Greinke, can be like, you know what? I had 3 teams call me, but I'm not ready yet. If Rich Hill is having to like turn people down that like want him to be on their team, like there's no reason why Zack Greinke shouldn't have half of the league, beating down his front door in Arizona, being like, please God, you got a healthy arm. You could still bring it every 5th day. Like there's no reason why Zach shouldn't be on a staff right now.
Definitely a rubber arm guy. A couple more injuries, he might get that call.
Legit. Yeah. If 2 more people in baseball that are like notable get like a UCL or like a flexor strain or something, like Zach will be there. He'll show up. He
might not get signed, but he'll be there before he gets signed. He'll just be at the door.
He's like Costanza. He just keeps showing up to work.
Whatever works.
Yeah, exactly. So, dude, this was awesome. Love catching up. I feel like we haven't done this a little bit, but there's so much going on in baseball right now. It's awesome to have you back on and catch up. Producer extraordinaire Ricky Finkel, host of College Baseball Fridays here on the feed. So, Ricky, you're the man, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely.